in its jurisprudence, has consistently held that reparations are necessary to restore the dignity of victims and provide redress for violations of their fundamental rights. The African Court's jurisprudence in cases like Mtikila versus Tanzania and Konate versus Burkina Faso.
Did you tell your story before the judge?
Mama, swali ningependa kukuuliza, nani amegharamia?
The question that I would like to ask you is, who met the cost of the court? That is the first question. Let me think. When you go to court, I used my money for transport when I was going, but when we were coming back, we were giving money at the court.
To go to court, I used my money, but on the way back, the court gave us money for transport. Swali la pili, umepewa nafasi ya kuongea kama wakili mbele ya mahakama.
Were you given a chance to speak in court? Were you given an opportunity to speak as a witness in court? Yes. I was given a chance to speak as a witness.
I was given a chance to speak as a witness before the court.
Thank you, Mr. President. That is all.
Merci, honorable juge Bensaoula, vous avez la parole.
Thank you, honorable Judge Bensaoula, have the floor.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a question to the witness. Who might find a clearer answer with the respondent states. I would like to know whether before the judge she was asked whether she wanted reparation and whether the judge took into consideration her request with regard to reparations, or hasn't this problem been raised?
Ulivyoenda mbele ya mahakama, umeomba fidia yoyote na ombi lako likazingatiwa na umepewa fidia yoyote?
Fidia yoyote? I was not given any reparation.
Wakaniambia mama wewe nenda nyumbani.
At the end, they just told me to go home and not to come back again.
When we finished making our submission, we were told to go home, and I did not get any compensation.
Très bien, merci à vous.
Fine, thank you. Now, can we just have an interpreter in Kiswahili that might facilitate our task?
À la suite des dépositions, est-ce que, puisqu'elle a des
To
difficultés
proceed with the other testimonials, since she has a problem with the headsets, can we have an interpreter in Kiswahili join us, please?
Très bien, les interprètes travaillent tous en ligne. Donc, nous allons procéder avec...
Okay, all interpreters are working online. Let's proceed. Honorable Judge Stella Anukam, you have the floor for your questions. Thank you.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
I have just one question for Mama Esther, because she seemed to have answered my other questions. I want to be sure that we heard you right. Mama Esther, did you say at the end of the court proceeding, your attackers were set free?
Alfred, la traduction, s'il vous plaît.
Mama Esther, ningependa kukuuliza
Mama Esther,
umesema ya kwamba
I would like to
baada
ask
ya
you,
kufikisha
after
ombi lako, baada ya kufikisha malalamiko yako,
taking your
waliokuvamia
complaint to
wameachiwa huru.
court, those who attacked you were released.
Mimi wakiniambia arudi nyumbani.
They were released. I was told to go home.
Mtoto wangu wa kike
I followed my daughter.
ndio walio nani naye. Sasa kuna siku akija akaniambia,
There's a day
mama,
the
wameisha
lawyer told me
kuachiwa.
that
Yeye akija
they have
analia,
released
anakuja huko nyumbani
the
kwake,
perpetrators.
analia.
My daughter
Kwa
came
nini
crying
watu wamekukata halafu wameachiwa mama?
and asking,
Amelia
why
sana.
did people chop your hand and they have been released? She was crying.
When the pleadings were concluded, after I had gone home, a time came when my daughter came to me and told me that they had been released, those who had cut my fingers, and she was bitterly crying.
Okay, thank you very much. A second and the last question, I'll make it as simple as possible. Will she happen, do you know, Mama Esther, the reason why your finger was cut and what it was used for?
You come back again?
Yes, I would like her to explain to the court if she knows the reason why they had to cut her finger and what the purpose, what they could have used the finger for.
Ama unajua waliokukata kidole
Do you know
na sababu yao ya kukukata kidole, unadhani walikuwa
why they chopped your
mpango wa
finger?
kukitumia kwa njia gani?
They wanted to use it in what way?
Matumizi ya kicho kidole walichokikata.
Do you know for what purpose they cut your finger? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what they wanted to use with my finger. I'm not sure. I don't know. They just cut my finger. I don't know for what purpose they wanted to have my finger. I don't know where they took it.
I have no idea what the finger was going to be used for. They only came and cut the finger and then they went away.
Merci à vous, honorable juge.
Thank you.
Dumisa, vous avez la parole.
Honorable Judge Dumisa, you have the floor, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mama Esther, I'd like to put just 3 questions, very short questions to you. The first is, ideally, what would you want the government to do for you and other people with albinism? That's the first question. Maybe I must allow you to answer that question.
Mama Esther, ungependa
Mama Esther,
serikali
what would
ifanyie
you
nini
like the government
watu wa
to do
albinism?
for people with
Watu
albinism?
wenye albino, ungependa wawafanyie nini? Serikali ungependa iwafanyie nini?
What would you like the government to do for them?
Serikali imependa itusaidie,
The
itutetee haki
government
zetu
should
sisi
help
maalbino,
us and fight for our rights
na
for us
itulinde.
with
Serikali.
albinism and to protect us as well.
We want the government to protect our human rights and to promote them.
The second question is, do you know if the faith communities, your Christians, Muslims, and any other any other faith communities, whether they have raised their voices against the persecution of people with albinism.
Mama Esther, una habari yoyote
Mama
kuhusu
Esther,
madhehebu ambayo yako
you know
Tanzania
of
kuinua
any
sauti na
religious
kutetea
organizations
watu ambao
that are
wana
raising their
albino?
voices against and fighting for people with albinism?
Sijui kuwahi kusikia madhehebu mengine,
I've not heard of
lakini
any
dhehebu la
religious
kwetu
organization, but
limeomba
our
sana
denomination
kuwa
have
haya-
asked
haya matatizo
that
Mungu
this problem,
tuepushie na matatizo haya.
that God help us
Najua hata
to
madhehebu mengine yanaweza kuomba kwa
for this
sababu
problem to go
pengine,
away.
lakini dhehebu la
Maybe
kwetu
other religions are
Lutheran
praying for that, but
wamekaa na kupiga
Lutheran
magoti kwa
have
Mungu
knelt down and
tuepushie
cried to God
na
that this problem
matatizo haya
hence
yanayofuata hawa marubino
the problem that is
kwa sababu wameumbwa na
facing
Mungu.
albinos, because they are also God's creation.
Tetea.
Yes.
I have no idea about other faiths, but I know my faith, the Lutheran Church. They have raised their voice, they have prayed so that God rid us of these challenges, and they continue doing so.
I think my third question has been answered also, Mr. President. Thank you very much.
Merci à vous, honorable juge Adjei, vous avez la parole. s'il vous
Thank
plaît.
you, Honorable Judge Ajay. Have the floor, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mama Esther, did you know your assailants at the time that they cut your fifth finger? Did you know them?
Conhecia as
Mama
pessoas que
Esther,
lhe cortaram o dedo?
ulifanikiwa kujua waliokukata kidole?
Nawajua kwa sababu mmeona kule Tanga. Mmoja anaitwa Hassani, mmoja anaitwa
I know them because I've seen them in Tanga. One is
mmoja anaitwa
called
Hassani,
Hassan,
mmoja anaitwa
and the other one
Hamisi.
is
Ndio
called
niliona
Amisi.
hao. Hassani,
I
Hamisi.
saw them,
Ndio waliopelekwa
Hassan and
mahakamani
Hamis. Those are
Tanga.
the people that were arraigned in court in Tanga.
I know them from Tanga because they were taken to court in Tanga, and one is Hassan, another one is Hamisi.
Thank you, Madam Esther. According to you, your hand was cut in 2015. How long did it take the state to prosecute the accused persons?
Umesema mkono wako, kidole chako kimekatwa 2015, na imechukua muda gani ili au watu waliokata kidole chako wapelekwe mahakamani?
Hawakuchukua muda sana,
They didn't take a long
labda
time.
wamemaliza kama miezi
Maybe
mwaka ni miezi tu, ule mwaka
it's not a year, but
waliokamata.
just several months, and they were
Mimi
arrested.
nimekatwa mwezi wa 12
I was chopped
2015.
in December
Wao
2015,
wamekamatwa
and they were
2017.
arrested in 2016.
It did not take too long to take those who cut my finger to the court. My finger was cut in December 2015, and they were arrested in 2016.
When was judgment delivered? You said that they were set free. When was the judgment delivered. We want to know the time lapse.
Mahakama imetoa maamuzi yake mwaka gani? Hukumu wa mahakama ilikuwa mwaka gani?
Tumemaliza, naona ule mwaka huo 16. Nimesahau sasa, ni mtu mzima.
I think it was the same year, 2016. You know, I've
I
forgotten.
don't remember if it's 2016. I have forgotten.
Question is, apart from you, have you ever seen a person with albinism that has suffered the same fate as yours?
Ulishawahi kuona
Un instant, nous avons 2 interprètes francophones sur le même
One
canal.
moment, please, just to point out the French channel, we have 2 speakers, 2 interpreters. Please continue, Emmanuel.
mtu mwingine mwenye albino ambaye amefanyiwa ulichokifanyiwa?
Have you seen another person with albinism who underwent the same situation? Yes, there's someone. I've forgotten his name. Both his arms were mutilated. So I come to realize even there are other people who are undergoing the same troubles.
I've seen one person in Dar es Salaam whose both hands were cut, and that's when I got to understand that even other people are victims of what I endured.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Madam Esther, for your statement. You may withdraw. Thank you very much. Are there any other witnesses who will be coming forward? The applicant counsel, can you indicate if you have any other witnesses to come forward, please?
I have last witness, Musa Kabimba. Très bien, madame peut bien se retirer.
Thank you very much. So if the witness can be accompanied out of the courtroom, and the next witness can come forward to take the podium, please. Thank you.
Honorable Vice President, honorable judges, the witness will now take the oath.
Mimi Musa Kabimba,
I, Musa Kabimba, I swear, affirm that I'll speak the truth and the plain truth.
Très bien. Pour procéder, s'il vous plaît.
Thank you very much.
Naweza
Kindly
kuendelea
proceed.
tafadhali. Can you proceed?
Musa, nitakuuliza maswali na utajibu kwa sauti mahakama iweze kusikia.
Musa, I'll ask you questions and you shall respond audibly that the court may hear. Musa, where are you coming from? I'm from Dar es Salaam.
Unafanya kazi gani kwa sasa hivi?
What are you doing to gain life? I'm the national coordinator for women with disabilities Tanzania. Before that, what were you doing? I was working with Tanzania Albinism Society.
Society kama nani?
Now, what is your position? I was the Secretary General of Association of People Living Albinism in Tanzania.
Kazi yake ni nini?
What are the responsibilities of that association, People Living Albinism? It is the advocacy on rights, dignity, and well-being of people living albinism, and the issues relating to access to social protection gears, and also dealing with the various challenges with the people facing people with the albinism. For how long have you been serving the position as a secretary? For 10 years, since 2009 up to 2023 last year.
Kipindi ambacho umefanya kazi.
By the time when you were in the office, do you remember major issues which you faced in order to stand for people living albinism? Yes. I remember the murder cases and the violations to people living albinism, children, women, even elderly people. They were raising at a high speed in various regions in this country. Now, you as an organization, what measures did you take? We were dealing with the advocacy at the level of the government, believing that the government is the body with authority and the constitutional mandate to deal for protection of people living with albinism. So we used to go to talk to them directly, but also we were carrying out advocacy and to increase awareness concerning the issues of rights and the well-being of people living with albinism. Now, by taking that action, engaging the government as members in their people, what support do you get? There are no any direct support which has been given from the government on relating to this issue, because up now the incidences are still going on, and still there is a great fear for people living with albinism in this country, because the actions taken seem to be low as comparing to the incidences or cases happening in recent years. Now, where do people living albinism get the support? Generally, apparently, we are taking initiative as an institute with the institution dealing with the human rights and other civil organizations. For instance, we are trying to raise our voice to the level of the community, believing that once the community will be aware, there might be the decrease of the speed or the increase of those violations. So there are various institutions like Under the Same Sun, with our Association of People Living Albinism, but also our colleague with the Legal and the Human Rights Center and the African Albinism Network. We have been collaborating together, and our fellow Tanzanians of the Human Rights Defenders Coalition. So these are some of the institutions we have been engaging together to make sure that there is stability and the well-being of people living with disability. You are saying that you are carrying out sensitization. So were there also another campaign of sensitization for people living with albinism from the government side? No, there hasn't been any campaign from the government. These have been carried out by NGOs. These have been, as I explained, in the institutions, organization which I have listed. Those are the ones who have been carrying the sensitization campaign, and also some other traditional leaders and champions, people in the community. We are saying people living with albinism, they have special needs. Which are those? There are those we call steering gears. It's like the oil which is protecting them against the sun rays and strengthen their skin, and the availability of sunglasses for sun rays, and having the big hats, which have been a great help in relation to our albinism, but also to help us to elongate our life, short of which we risk to lose our life because of skin cancer. So you have listed many of the needs. Now, where do you get them from? We get them from the NGOs. For instance, under the same sun, African Albinism Network, Standing Voice, and the other NGOs I have mentioned. Those are the ones which have been contributing from the needs which we have. You have said there have been cases for murders and mutilation. Did you make any follow-up for the victims? Yes. In the sense that sometimes we make a follow-up, but sometimes we use the media to make a follow-up. Now, in your follow-up, can you explain the number of and which actions were taken? Well, I cannot remember the incidents or the cases which have been brought before the court, and those who are not brought before the court, but I can say there are those who are brought before court, but some of them never being brought to the court, and sometimes that the evidences are not enough. But I can say there are many which are not being brought to the level of the court. Now, you are the secretary of the
Mimi kama mimi kwanza nina hofu. Najisikia hofu kubwa sana.
Personally, like I say, I'm fearful when I hear about the attacks and going on news, and you see there are no actions taken, and you don't see the just being implemented. So much of fear is increasing. Now, for those victims, in the cases you are saying, some were brought before the court, some there were no witnesses. So do you have any information about people who got some compensation or reparation from the government? No one who had ever been compensated from the government is related to the mutilation or murder. Since the 2009 plus year, when I was when I was a leader, I haven't witnessed any compensation from the mutilation or attacks or murder from the government. Now, the case before the court was brought for the court 2018. Now, can you tell us what is the status right now? Sorry, can you repeat? Now, what is the status quo? Since 2018 up now, the situation isn't calm. Still, there are incidents, cases. For instance, recently this year, May, there in Nigeria, our brother Julius Kazungu was attacked. It was at their Geita Katoro, but also there have been various information. For instance, in Tabora, recently it has happened. again Mwanza, Chesapeake. So still the situation is not stable, and so we continue to be fearful. And now, by the days which we are in, we are still to be more fearful that we might be at a big risk of being attacked in the murder cases. Any recent murder case? I remember that one happened, Kagera, when this 2024, it happened in Muleba district, if I'm not mistaken. What happened? A child was abducted or taken from the family during the night around 9 p.m. Those who took her, it was June this year. They took a child and he disappeared for around 7 days. And after that, we found her body while some of the parts of the bodies were removed. So the situation, can you tell the court that now the situation still is not yet stable? If you are reporting up to June, yes, I confirm the situation is not stable. We need to take more initiatives to make sure that security is being established. Now, in your advocacy, have you known what the government strategy with the relation to compensation? You can see the murdering is continuing. You are saying now you're working with the organization?
Movement of Women with Disability
Moadita. So are you still dealing with all groups? Now, I'm saying, as you engage the government, have you already submitted any application to the government to be helped in one or another, either through Albanese, people with albinism, or Moadita? No, we haven't submitted any request to application which have been implemented. And some issues have been trying to insist to the government that when we saw that there is an increase of violations and the murder, we tried to advise the government that please help us to have a national program for people living with albinism, whereby now all people living with albinism, even all citizens, whereby we can have an initiative which can help us to take care of our security and the well-being of people with albinism. But this one hasn't yet achieved. We started it since 2018 and nothing has taken place. Even my colleague in the office, they are saying it's not yet successful. That is just one. There are many. We haven't succeeded in any. So you thought that the plan would help in which area? You know, the National Action Plan on Albinism, if the government would accept to have that program, it had a pillar or pillars which would lead to the implementation, the protection, security, peace, but also improving the health of people living with albinism in that program. There are also the issue of responsibilities for all stakeholders, the government, and all people who can take action in contributing that plan. So if the government would have agreed on that program like our fellow neighbor countries, because that was launched as per the regional agreement from East Africa. For instance, Kenya, they have ratified, they are taking action in Uganda, Malawi, but we are not yet ratified. So if we had accepted it, it would bring some initiatives and it would help us to make an assessment of the life and people living albinism without pointing finger to any other one. Ni hayo tu. I continue.
Très bien. L'État défendeur, avez-vous des questions pour le témoin, s'il vous plaît?
Thank you. The respondent, do you have any cross-examination questions for the witness, please? You may come forward.
Shahidi, umesema wewe ulikuwa ni kiongozi mkubwa wa TAS.
You said that you were in a senior position of TAS. can you tell the court in your leadership, had you ever written a letter to write to the government to request for any support in albinism as a leader?
Niliwahi kuandika ndio.
Yes, I did.
Kuleta huo uthibitisho hapa mahakamani, maana kuna kiapo chako kipo mahakamani.
Do you have any evidence? Do you remember to attach that letter so that the court might believe that you wrote a letter to request for support from the government?
Barua hapa sikuambatanisha.
I didn't attach it, so how shall the court believe what I say?
Serikali ilisemaje? Ilikujibuje?
What did the government respond?
Kwenye barua ambayo nilipeleka haikunipa majibu yoyote.
It didn't respond anything. Did you make any follow-up? I made a follow-up, but I couldn't get any response. But why didn't you say it in your oath or in your affidavit? Can you tell the court how TAS was engaging or collaborating with the government in the ministry, or you are working alone without collaborating with the government?
Ilikuwa inahitaji kuialika kuja kushika mfano kwenye shughuli kama kuna matukio kama mfano ile international albinism awareness.
The government would want to be invited. For instance, when we had the International Day for Albinism, when we would invite the guest of honor, he would come and participate, and that was all. That's the only collaboration I would get from the government. Deputy minister would come, he would come and address the Congress, and after that he goes on. So were you not given an opportunity to present your needs? We did. Normally, whenever we have those events, we give the speech, and normally that speech is always responded by the guest of honor. So whenever you submit, the guest of honor would say, but implementation is another thing altogether. You said you have been in this association for quite a long time. So would you agree with me that the government gives subsidies in those NGOs to fulfill their responsibilities? No, the government has not been giving the subsidies for quite a long time. As per the Act number 9 of 2010 of people living with albinism, there is a provision that says there will be a fund for people living with the disability. I've been a leader. We have never received even a single cent. That this year the government has started to give the subsidy in those NGOs, but during my leadership we have never received any. You have said about the oil, the glasses have been given under the same sun. Do you understand? Do you know KCMC? Yes. Yes, I know Kilimanjaro Christian Medical Center. Shall you agree with me that it was offering those oil for people living with albinism? No, it's not offering. KCMC doesn't offer those oil. Witness. There is MSD, Medical Store Department. It gives the lotion for helping people on skin issues. Do you agree with me that they have been offered by the government, they help you? No. MSD, they don't give those protective oil. MSD, they import, but they don't offer. May I invite my colleague that he might proceed.
Shahidi, hebu tukumbushe
Can you remind us?
Umeelezea hapo awali ulikuwa kiongozi wa
You have said that you were the leader for the party with the people living in albinism. what the name of that party? The Association of People Living Albinism in Tanzania. Since which year? 2009. You remember what happened in 50 March 2015?
Tarehe 15 Machi.
Tarehe 5 Machi mwezi Machi, yawezekana tarehe ikawa
50 March.
sio sahihi.
Okay, let's say maybe the date might be March 2015. The association was invited in State House by President Jakaya Kikwete. Do you remember that?
Nakumbuka. Ilikuwa sio
Yes,
mwaka
I do.
2015.
It was in 2015.
Kabla nafikiri ya 2015.
It was, I think, before 2015.
Tarehe halisi au mwaka halisi.
Sina kumbukumbu, lakini sio mwaka 2015, kabla
I don't remember. I can't remember exactly, but it was in 2015. Do you remember President Jakaya Kikwete? What did he help you with? He just helped us to meet them and speak to them. And I think there is a support he gave. Which one?
Msaada aliotoa Mheshimiwa Rais Kikwete.
The support he gave, Excellency President Kikwete, just the speech. I don't remember anything more than that. So if you don't remember, if I say there are some supports which were given, including to direct MSD and the KSMC to be offering oils for helping people in albinism, clothes, etc., to give them free. If I say so, shall I be wrong? He gave directives, but we never received it. Are you sure? Yes, I am. I'm sure. He gave directives, but we didn't receive anything. You have said in your witness that while you are a leader in that association, you are making follow-up of people being taken to court or before court as related to the events which encountered people with albinism. And you said some of cases were not brought to the court or were not followed by the government. Can you mention anyone whereby the government did bring the responsible before the court? Yes, there is an incident happened in Tabora. I think it was in May 2021, if I'm right, if I'm correct. There is a child. We went there.
Kuna tabia ile mtoto ikishaonekana namna gani watu wanazika haraka kupoteza.
No, when the child was buried very quickly, but that child had albinism. So that child lost her rights because at the end of the day, there are no any case. So the police force didn't take any action. If the government didn't carry out any investigation, so the court couldn't do anything. I remember that incident. You say they buried very quickly. Who buried quickly? I don't know who buried, but we reached there taking responsibilities and association people living albinism because that is our voice. We went there to make a follow-up, and we are informed that already the body of that child was already buried. You have also said that you have been receiving support from Legal Women Rights Center. Which support? Legal support. We have been also receiving on support on doing review and developing the national plan, the status of having pardon?
Are you receiving us in the French channels?
Maintenant, nous ne vous entendions pas. C'est revenu maintenant. Vous pouvez procéder, s'il vous
Because
plaît.
we can't hear you, so perhaps we can continue now.
Essayez d'être assez bref dans les questions et dans votre réponse aussi, essayez d'être...
Try to be very brief in your questions and the responses to the questions should be brief. He's not wearing a headset. I don't know whether he understands French. So he too should be brief in his responses. And this goes same for the respondent state and for the applicant. All of you should be brief in your answers and in your questions. Tell your witnesses to be quite clear and precise in their answers. The questions should be very precise and the answers too should be precise. Kindly inform your witnesses, and this request also goes to all future questions which should be asked by applicants. Thank you.
Ndugu Musa Kabimba.
Dear Mr. Kadimba, you have come to give witnesses before the court. Before giving a witness, you have sworn. First question, do you agree with me that the Association of People Living Albinism in Tanzania collaborate with the government of Tanzania through the Prime Minister's office? You have sat down together, you have prepared the action plan specifically for people living with albinism in Tanzania. That's correct? We have prepared that plan with the stakeholders, where the government is just a part of it. Dear Kadimba, you have taken an oath. You are a secretary of TAS. Do you agree with me that the TAS is getting the subsidy from the government through Prime Minister's office? Is that correct? No, I've said I was 2009 up to 3. We have never received that subsidy. So if we would bring the government budget of the funds which were sent to the Association of People Living Albinism in Tanzania for the year 2022-2023, shall I be wrong? If you bring me the budget for 2022-2023, which was the funds from the government of Tanzania through Prime Minister's office to go to the Association of People in Albinism, shall I be correct that the government disburses the money? I've never seen that money. 2023, I left TAS last year, 16th June 2023. I had never received any subsidy from the government. Before that, the government had been giving the subsidies to the this is 2020 up to 23, because at the time where you were in the office, that's right. For the information I have, the subsidies have been given this year. Before that, when I was in power, had I received, I would also even sign the expenditure. I can give you what even I signed, but I have never received it. I confirm before the court. But this year, 2024, I've heard, but I can't also confirm because I've just heard that the Association for People Living Albinism has received a subsidy this year, 2024. So do you agree with me that the government of Tanzania, through the Prime Minister's office, it has been collaborating with the Association of People Albinism in Tanzania in preparing various issues, including the meetings? I accept on the International Albinism Day preparation. Now, do you agree with me that the International Albinism Day, can you tell the court what is the date? Every year, 13th June. So do you agree with me that this year, 13th June, on the day of albinism in the world, in Tanzania, that took place in Kibaha, Pwani. Do you agree that? Do you agree that you participate? I didn't participate. It was. Do you agree that this year took place? Yes, it took place. Do you agree with me that the oil which people use, people with albinism, they have been offered by KSMC? Do you agree with me that they were offered? I don't agree with you because I don't have any confirmation. Do you agree that those were posted in the media, but in social media? And even the leaders of TAS this year were present this year to receive the parcel which was given. I don't understand. You don't understand because you are not there or you haven't seen. I wasn't there. But because you're not there doesn't mean that it was not given. I cannot confirm. Do you agree with me that the government of Tanzania, through the medical store department, it gives oils for people with albinism? No. Medical store is an importer. Now, when it imports, it goes, you must go and buy from MSD shops. Are you able to go and purchase products as an individual from MSD? I don't know. You don't know, or it is not possible. Apart from you, can an individual citizen go to MSD and buy any product? Those who are going there, they are institutions, not individuals. Do you agree with me that the government of Tanzania, through TAMISEMI, local government, President's Office, Regional Administration, local government, that is TAMISEMI, it has given the oil, special oil for people living albinism in the schools. It has also supplied the magnifying glasses. It has supplied those hats. It has supplied standing aids. Briefly, it has supplied various products to help students with albinism in primary and secondary school. Do you agree with me? I don't know. You have come here to give witness for who? For the case before us. What is it? It is violations, attacks, and the murder against people living with albinism. Have you read the charge sheet? I said I have come for the case of killing and attacks, but do you know the charge sheet? So you don't know what are you witnessing for if you don't know even the charges are what? Let's go on. Do you agree with me that
Madam, try to reduce your number of questions. You ask direct questions to the witness so that we can gain in time. Kindly ask direct questions so that the witness could respond precisely. Thank you.
Ndugu Musa Kabimba,
Naam.
unakubaliana na
Musa Kazimba, do you agree with me that the year 2016, when you were in leadership,
serikali ya Tanzania
the government of Tanzania, it held a symposium for preventing violation against people with albinism in Lake Zone region, and you participated. Lake Zone, you mean Mwanza?
Nafahamu.
Yes, I do understand.
Sawa, umesema kuhusu habari ya mauaji ya
You have
mtoto.
spoken about the killings or the murder about a child which happened in the Kagera region. Do you agree with me that the case is before the court? Yes, I agree.
Let me end here and I invite my colleague to continue with the cross-examination. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Justices of the Court. I have only one question to the witness. Shahidi, nina swali moja kwako.
I have one question to you. In the period where you were in TAS, had you ever worked with the Commission for Human Rights and Good Governance? In which areas did you work?
Nilifanya nao kazi kwenye kuandika periodic report.
In writing periodic report of the implementation of the human rights. That's what I remember very properly. Do you agree with me that you had done some symposium with the Commission of Human Rights and Good Governance and various meetings for creating awareness to the community about albinism? Yes, we have been inviting the Commission. For them, they invited us for preparing that report. So, generally, you agree that you have worked with the Commission of Human Rights and Good Governance, and you know that that institute is the government institute. So you shall agree with me that you have been collaborating with the government in various issues with the people living albinism.
Kama tume ndio.
If for the Commission, it's okay.
Very well. Honorable judges,
Judge
Chikaya, you may ask your question. Thank you, Mr. President.
Monsieur Moussa Kabinda.
Mr. Musa Kabinda, we have heard lots of things, but there's something which seems to be important. I would like you to make some clarifications on that issue. You said that you are the national coordinator. What does your work really consist of? And in addition, your pay, is there any contribution that comes from the state as far as your pay, your salary is concerned? Does the state make any contribution to your salary? You are the national coordinator. What exactly do you do? And on this issue, your salary, your income, is there any contribution that comes from the state for your salary or your income? Thank you.
Asante. Mimi kwa sasa ni mratibu wa taifa kwenye movement.
I'm the national coordinator of women with disability I'm a coordinator. For the task, I was the Secretary General. I'm no longer there. But there, I never received any salary from the government. Even here, on the movement of women with disability, I haven't received any salary. We are working on a voluntary basis. And we are finding resources from stakeholders even outside the country. But from the government, I haven't received any salary. Even from development partners, I haven't received any salary. We are working on a volunteering basis. So whenever I go to participate in any official duty, I'm being paid the DSA, the fare to and return. Simple like that.
Merci à vous. Honorable juge Anoukam, s'il vous plaît.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you. Judge Anoukam, you have the floor.
Merci, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Musa. I just have some questions for you. And I'm going to draw these questions in addition to what you have said, also from the affidavit you have sworn to, which is before this court in support of the application by the applicants. Precisely, I would like to know about the human rights organization. I'm sorry, I would like to know, as you have as Part2, that at a time you organized like a protest, and the immediate reaction from the regional police commissioner regarding the issues you raised were brushed aside, and the incident was tagged as exaggerated for the group for which you were protesting, which is persons with albinism. And the regional police commissioner further promised to arrest those who supported the incident as misleading the public. Do you recall this incident? And what more will you have to say regarding it? Were you further arrested as threatened? Is the question clear, sir?
Swali sijalielewa, lakini kwanza sijawahi kukamatwa, lakini maelezo ya mwanzo sijasikia vizuri.
I've never been arrested, but I couldn't hear the first explanations clearly.
Do you remember the incident?
Unakumbuka tukio ambapo
if I may refresh your memory, in your affidavit, you said in paragraph 20, and I can read, the human rights organization, including the third applicant herein, issued a press statement condemning the attack and calling the government of Tanzania to take action to bring perpetrators to justice. And that was following the incident of a young boy who in 4th of May 2024 was attacked. And that was the immediate reaction of that your organization. And what is of interest to me is the reaction of the police commissioner, which you alleged brushed aside the incident as a normal one, and that you were just exaggerating. And he further threatened that you and your group will be arrested. Because as he alleged, you were misleading the public.
Hapana, sikumbuki.
He says, I don't remember. He doesn't remember the incidents.
We have to get the
Honorable Judge, I think that's a problem with Kiswahili. You may proceed.
Of Geita, but interpretation we are getting from this here is quite different. I know the affidavit, what he's talking about is about incidents happening in Gator and what RPC, the response of RPC. So the interpretation which is we're receiving from there, because I'm monitoring Kiswahili, cannot help the witness. Otherwise, you can deliver the affidavit to her, she can go through to him, and then he can respond.
Can you show it to him if you have it in Swahili to refresh his memory? Thank you.
Yeah, the issue is about the incidents which happened for Kasungu in Geita and the reaction of RPC. If you remember, you can reply.
I can't hear properly.
Allez-y. Un instant, l'État défendeur a demandé la parole.
You may proceed. The respondent state is seeking the floor. So let's give him the floor.
Sorry, Honorable Justices.
Let's
We
give him
don't
the
have
floor
any
for a short while.
for the applicant, for the witness to be shown his affidavit. Our objection is basing on the counsel explaining those things. That is where our objection is. We kindly ask the counsel not to do that. Show the affidavit to the applicant, to the witness, and let the witness answer the questions and not clarify. Thank you.
Nous avons pris bonne note de vos observations.
Your
Oui,
comments? Could you respond, Mr. Musa? Could you respond to the question that has been put to you? Interpreters in Kiswahili, we have been told about an incident. Try to be up to the game in the interpretation you are given so that you can be properly followed.
Est-ce que vous Monsieur Moussa, est-ce que vous avez compris?
Mr. Musa, have you understood the question? Those who follow in Kiswahili, did they receive the interpretation? Is it not going through interpretation in Kiswahili?
Est-ce que les interprètes en Swahili sont en ligne?
Are the Kiswahili
Musa,
interpreters online?
umesikia na umeelewa, unaweza kujibu?
Est-ce que nous entendent?
Can they hear us?
Unasikia?
Je constate que nous avons l'anglais et le Swahili
I
dans le canal.
note that we have
Nami
English and
tuna
Kiswahili in
Kiingereza na
channel 1.
Kiswahili kwenye channel ya kwanza. Hello?
Oui, si vous pouvez vous organiser, s'il vous plaît.
Kindly organize the channels. Kindly organize the channels because we're getting the two languages
Naomba
in channel
tujiweke
1.
pamoja.
Kiswahili is supposed to be channel 5.
Hello?
Oui. Est-ce que le Kiswahili peut voir? Parce que normalement, c'est le canal numéro 5.
Can Kiswahili organize itself and go back to channel 5, please?
Il n'y a rien qui nous sort du canal numéro 5 ici.
There is just nothing in channel 5 here. So Kiswahili, please change your channel and go to channel 5 because channel 1 is English.
C'est bon? Je vois que l'anglais est revenu au canal 1.
Is everything okay? I notice English has come back to channel 1. Is everything okay?
Emmanuel, est-ce que le canal 5 donne quelque chose?
Le canal 5, en principe, c'est le Kiswahili. C'est Julius qui doit le faire. Je vais lui demander de le faire.
Julius, est-ce que vous pouvez orienter le Swahili sur le canal 5? Emmanuel, quelque chose vous arrive dans le canal 5? Rien ne vous arrive là?
Non, je suis en... Non, non, pas du tout. Je suis en canal 1.
Emmanuel, procédez comme la dernière fois à lui faire la traduction, s'il vous plaît. Honorable juge Anokam, si vous pouvez reprendre votre question afin que Emmanuel puisse faire l'interprétation le temps que les techniciens puissent reprendre la situation, s'il vous plaît. Reprenez la question pour Monsieur Emmanuel, s'il vous
George,
plaît.
kindly repeat the question for Mr. Emmanuel Nyonkuru so that he can interpret the question to the witness. Emmanuel, you have been authorized by the court.
I would suggest, Honorable Vice President, that perhaps if the counsel to the witness has the affidavit sworn to by the witness, he could want to show him the paragraph drawing the question from. Do you have that affidavit dated the 16th day of May 2024 by the deponent who is the witness before us? If you don't have it readily available, I will attempt again to ask my question. In that affidavit, it is alleged in paragraph 19 that there was an incident of a young boy, 4th of May 2024, was attacked while he was getting prepared for bathing, and the assailant broke into the home, his parents' home, and that necessitated the human rights organization, including the third applicant and this witness, to issue a press statement condemning the attack, calling the government of Tanzania, which is the respondent state in this matter, to take action to bring the perpetrators to justice. And in paragraph 21, you further aver that the immediate reaction from the regional police commissioner, the ROPC, and you mentioned the name of the person, was to brush away the incident as the normal one, and that it was staged and exaggerated for the person to gain from certain group of person, and there is no threat to the persons with albinism. That is what you have alluded to. And the ROPC further promised to arrest those who supported the incident, as they have misled the public, and action will be taken against them. So I asked two questions. Were there further actions taken against you and your group? And what followed after the press statement, beyond what the ROPC has said? Did the government of Tanzania, did they take any action regarding the press statement you released regarding that incident? That's my question. Mr. Musa, is it clear to you? If it's not clear to you, I'll step it down. Thank you.
Ni vizuri swali. Sijalielewa vizuri yani.
I didn't get
Naomba
your question
urudie, sijalielewa vizuri.
properly. I'm asking you to repeat the question.
Swali lenyewe
Just summarize your question so that I get to understand it better.
Excusez-moi.
Counsel may want to show him the affidavit. We are saying what you said. We just want you to affirm what you said. So we are not the one formulating it. It came from you.
Okay. Asante.
Thank you.
Nimelielewa, nimeipitia, nimeielewa.
I have looked at the affidavit and I understand. After the incidents, normally we give statements to castigate the killing and the action. So for us as an institution dealing with human rights, after giving that statement, that is when it was said that there was nothing to threaten our lives. The PC also attacked us verbally. He attacked us verbally and we were affected by his verbal attacks because he appeared like there is nothing that had happened.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Très bien,
you.
merci à vous, honorable juge Anouka.
Thank you, Honorable Judge Anuka. Honorable Judge Binsala, you have the floor, please. Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Moussa, I would like to ask you a question. In view of your official and senior position, you said that you followed up cases of albinism. My question is whether you assist the victims and accompany them before the court when there is a trial. Because my question, and this is the second part of my question, we've asked questions to some victims regarding reparations granted by the courts. Do you confirm that these courts do make reparations, or aren't you aware of that? Because I think that you, if, as you said, you follow up the cases, you necessarily accompany the victims.
Président, je pense qu'il y a un problème de traduction pour lui. Ouais.
Est-ce que M. Moussa nous entend?
Mr. Moussa, can you hear us?
S'il vous plaît, est-ce que vous pouvez
Says the President. Can you please ask, Honorable Judge Binsala, can you please repeat your question? Well, let me make it short. So, in view of your position, you said that you used to follow up cases of albinism. My question is, following what has been said by some victims, when we ask them the question whether the national courts granted you reparations, they said no. So do you confirm that when there is a trial, the victims are not granted by the judge reparations in relation to the harms they suffered from? Thank you.
I have understood the question. I confirm that there was no reparation that was given by to all the affected people. There was no reparation that was given by the government.
No reparation. I want to confirm that all the victims don't get any reparation.
Ma question n'était pas le gouvernement. Je parlais des
My
juridictions.
question was not about the government. I was referring to the courts. When the judge condemned the perpetrators, do they condemn or also order the perpetrators to make reparations to the victims? I'm not referring to the government.
Zilikuwa zinadhibitisha au zinalazimisha watu waliohusika na vitendo vilivyowaathiri kuwapa fidia.
By the court, did they ask the courts? The court give reparations to the victims.
C'est bon? Honorable Judge Binsala.
Honorable Judge Binsala, are you satisfied with the answer? Fine.
Honorable Judge Adjei, s'il vous plaît, vous avez la parole.
Honorable Judge Adjei, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes. Musa, in your evidence in chief, you stated that in May 2024, somebody you describe as a brother, and it's a person with albinism, was attacked. Who attacked him, and what was the extent of the attack? May 20.
Ndugu yule alikuwa anaitwa Kazungu Julius.
The brother was
mwezi
called
Mei.
Kazungu Julius.
Sifahamu nani alimshambulia kwa kweli.
I don't know who attacked him
Na
for
kiwango
sure.
cha ushambuliaji,
And the level of attack,
alipigwa na kitu
he
chenye
was
ncha kali
hit
kichwani,
by a sharp
kiasi cha kupelekea
object
kushonwa
on the
kiwango
head,
kikubwa sana. Ndicho najua.
and he had to get stitches from the hospital.
Thank you. My second question is, you said that during this season in question, the life of persons with
That is from 2018. We have not seen any steps taken to protect people with albinism because the same incidences are happening even today.
Mr. President.
Merci à vous.
Thank you.
Honorable Juge Menge, vous avez la parole.
Honorable Judge Menge, you have the floor, please.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Alors, Monsieur Moussa.
Well, Mr. Moussa,
Vous dites que vous avez été
saying that you've been coordinator of this movement up to last year. So to your knowledge, has the government taken some actions following your movement or thanks to your movement to improve the situation and the living conditions of persons living with albinism? I do have a second section of this question to say that now, what are you expecting? What are the measures you're expecting of the government to change the deal and to change the situation? Thank you.
Asante.
Thank you. First of all, there are no steps that have been taken on this matter, but I expect that the government has a strategy to fight this menace. That is cruelty and deaths of people living with albinism.
Honorable Juge Dumisa, vous avez la parole, s'il vous plaît.
Honorable Judge Dumisa, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Musa. Musa Kabimba Musa.
No.
Yes.
No.
Now, there is the affidavit purports to have been deposed to by you, in which you were referred to by Judge Anukam. And in the last paragraph of that affidavit, paragraph 24, you say, I further state that the government of Tanzania has not taken the serious action to combat the problem in Tanzania. And people with albinism in Tanzania, including myself, are living with great fear. And I'm just concerned about the expression there, because we've already had evidence from other witnesses, even from the respondents' witnesses, who are stating in terms what it is that the government of Tanzania has been doing in order to combat the problem. But let me hear from you, let the court hear from you as you stand there before God, what you perceive to be serious action to combat the problem which the government of Tanzania must take, because according to you, it has not taken any serious steps in that direction.
Asante.
Thank you very much.
Mimi ambacho ningetamani kukiona
What I'd
kinafanyika
like
ili kuhakikisha hatua imechukuliwa
to be done to ensure, to see really that serious action is being taken is that as other groups are helped, there are specific strategies to deal with the problem of women and other groups. But as albinos, we do not have a solid strategy to deal with these attacks. Since the attacks started, we have just been hearing statements from leaders, but we don't have a solid strategy for the government to show that they are working on this problem, and which we are seeing that it's still ongoing to date.
Follow up, Mr. President. Do you imagine that if there was a ministry in the cabinet that dealt specifically with the problem of albinism, that sufficient attention then would be given to this problem as you see it? I'm just asking.
Hapana, haliwezi kuisha kwa
I
sababu
don't think it can end because the ministry or a minister is not enough. We want a national plan or strategies so that even someone, even if they did not have albinism, can step in and ensure that our issues are taken care of. We don't have to have a minister with albinism. Dr. Apis was an albino, but the situation continued to remain the same. What we want is that we have a national plan or strategy to deal with killings and attacks of people with albinism so that our issues can be addressed properly.
Merci à vous, honorable juge Anokam. Vous avez la parole, s'il vous
Thank
plaît.
you, Honorable Judge Anokam. You have the floor, please.
Yes, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Musa. The court would like to know this national action plan you talked about in your evidence in chief with its pillars, which is intended to be submitted to government as an action plan. And my question is, have you submitted this national plan to government? And which of the arm of government? Have you submitted it perhaps to the legislators or to the executive arm of government? Who do you consider as being the appropriate arm of government to deal with and join you in the fulfillment of this action plan? Thank you.
Asante.
Asante sana.
Mpango huu unatakiwa kusimamiwa na
This plan should be managed by the office of the Prime Minister for Youth and People Living with Disability. And as stakeholders these organizations, we have taken in the ministry the last proposal for that plan, but the government has not been very keen on signing that plan so that it can officially be a national plan for albinism, and which will help to deal with cruelty and killings of people living with albinism.
Are you suggesting that this plan is before government? Have you shared it with government or you intend to share it? That I think that is an aspect we would like to know.
Asante. Mpango huu
Thank you.
upo
This
serikalini.
plan is with the government. We have presented it in government for a long time. I think we completed working on this in 2022, but the government until now has not signed it, although it is complete and it has all the things necessary and which the government has prescribed to be there in such a plan. We are following guidance from experts, and that plan has all the elements required to make it a credible plan. We have already submitted it to the government, the Office of the Prime Minister, and in the Ministry of Labor, Youth, and People living with a disability. I have met with the ministers, and they are aware of this plan.
Thank you very much. Asante sana.
Asante.
Honorable Juge
Thank you.
Duncan, vous avez la parole, s'il vous plaît.
Honorable Judge Duncan, you have the floor, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. The question I'm going to ask you is related to the question that has been asked by Judge Dumisa and Judge Menge. I decided to leave it out, but the answer you've just given, I think, compels me to ask. And secondly, because this is a court of justice, we are here to give you justice. We are here to do justice. And from your testimony all through, it was very clear that the government has done almost nothing or very little. And when the two judges have cited their names, asked you, what would you want the government to do for you? It's a very, very important question. And I think that's why you are here. You said, you talked of a strategy, that there is a strategy. And the government is aware of that strategy. You also called it a national plan. And you said the government is aware of that national plan. Now, let me ask you this question. Sir, can you try to unpack for us the contents of that strategy? Give us an idea what is in that national plan. Thank you.
Asante, nashukuru.
Thank you very much. Thank you. The national plan for people living with albinism here in the country, first of all, was an agreement between African countries, especially East Africa. It started with Africa and East Africa. We came up with a strategy for East Africa in Kampala, Uganda. I participated and our leaders agreed that that should be the case for all countries. All countries should have such a plan. But when we came home, the government claimed that we do not have money to implement that plan. We have completed all the things necessary, and we have several pillars in that plan. The issue of protection and accountability. And there are clarifications, lengthy clarifications of each of these items. For example, protection. For us, we need, for example, sunscreens to protect us against skin cancer. There's also protection from killings and attacks. There's also accountability, that every stakeholder must be accountable to ensure that the plan is implemented. For us as stakeholders also, we have a responsibility. So we have designated ourselves to implement every item in that plan. We have our laws, we have our traditions, and we have followed all this as we were doing this plan. We put this into consideration when we were making this plan. And we have experts whose work is to clarify on issues that perhaps are not clear. When I was leaving, there was the final draft for people living with albinism was ready, and we presented it to government. The National Action Plan for Albinism needs to be signed by the Principal Secretary of the Ministry. For now, it is the Office of the Prime Minister, Labor, Youth, and People Living with Disability. There are parts that the Minister and the Principal Secretary should sign, but until now, these two individuals have not signed. And every time we ask, they tell us they will sign. So we are seeing that it's a deliberate action not to sign it. So all the countries that were organizing such plans, Kenya, Malawi, Rwanda, have signed those kind of plans for their countries. But in Tanzania, the plan has not been signed. In those other countries that I mentioned, these problems that we're talking about are not there because the government ratified and signed those national plans. So it is the responsibility of a government to protect us. If the government ratified, all signed that national plan, that will be a huge reprieve for us living with albinism. Without this kind of a plan, we will continue talking about incidences that have befallen people living with albinism, killings and mutilations, etc. So I'm here to confirm to the court that that plan is there. It has all the elements required, and it has no problem whatsoever. The government of Tanzania should sign this plan, and I think if there are challenges, we can call stakeholders and improve it. We are the right people to review that plan if we think that it needs to be amended to go with the times.
Merci. Honorable collègue, avez-vous
Thank you, honorable colleagues. Do you have any other questions? No.
Est-ce que vous avez d'autres témoins à présenter?
Do you have any other witnesses?
Ou c'était le dernier témoin?
Ladies and gentlemen, the applicants, or was it the last witness?
We have finished our witnesses, but we wish to make submission or reparation if time will allow.
Allez-y.
You may proceed.
Allez-y, s'il vous plaît, vous avez la parole.
Go ahead, please. You have the floor.
Vous avez la parole, s'il vous plaît. Vous aviez dit que vous aviez une déclaration à faire. Vous aviez la
You
parole.
said you had a declaration to make. Please, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Honorable Vice President and judges of the court, it is with a deep sense of responsibility and a firm commitment to justice that we present our submissions on reparations before this honorable court. The reparations sought are not only a crucial element of this case, but are also a reflection of the urgent need for meaningful redress to the grave violations suffered by persons with albinism in Tanzania. The applicants have demonstrated both through evidence and legal arguments that the respondent state has failed in its obligations under the African Charter on Human and People's Rights and other international human rights instruments to protect persons with albinism from persecution, mutilation, and death. The harm suffered by these individuals, including physical, psychological, and socioeconomic consequences, requires comprehensive reparations to restore dignity, provide compensation rights law. Article 27 of the Protocol to the African Charter on Human and People's Rights on the establishment of the African Court on Human and People's Rights gives this court the authority to issue appropriate orders, including orders for reparations to address the harm caused by violations of human rights. It provides that if the court finds that there's been a violation of a human or people's rights, it shall make appropriate orders to remedy the violation, including the payment of fair compensation or reparation. The African Commission on Human and People's Rights, in its jurisprudence, has consistently held that reparations are necessary to restore the dignity of victims and provide redress for violations of their fundamental rights. The African Court's jurisprudence in cases like Mtikila versus Tanzania and Konate versus Burkina Faso has affirmed this principle, ensuring that justice extends beyond mere recognition of violations and mandates tangible redress for victims. In this case, we are seeking a comprehensive package of reparations, including compensation, rehabilitation, restitution and reintegration, satisfaction, among others. I will address these in turn. Firstly, we're seeking non-pecuniary damages or moral damages. In its jurisprudence, the African Court has routinely awarded non-pecuniary or moral damages. I'll refer to the court's decisions in the cases of Leon Mugesera versus the Republic of Rwanda, Zongo versus Burkina Faso, and Konate versus Burkina Faso. Non-pecuniary or moral damages seek to compensate victims for the suffering, including the psychological harm, anguish, grief, sadness, distress, fear, frustration, anxiety, inconvenience, humiliation, and reputational harm caused by the violation. I would also refer to the court's decision in Zongo versus Burkina Faso and Konate versus Burkina Faso. In this present case, persons with albinism and their families have suffered incalculable harm as a result of the respondents' failure to protect them. The emotional and psychological trauma, fear, distress, loss of life, pain and suffering, permanent disfigurement, and the socio-economic impact caused by the violence against persons with albinism cannot be overlooked. In line with the jurisprudence of the court, we urge the court to award moral damages to the victims for the pain and suffering they and their families have suffered in the terms as requested in the originating application. I would also like to mention that in its response to the applications, the respondent submits that the applicants need to prove the damages that the victims have suffered for them to be entitled to compensation. We submit that this is in direct contradiction of the jurisprudence of the court, which has consistently held that a finding of human rights violations is per se sufficient basis for the award of moral damages in favor of victims and their close family members. The court's jurisprudence is also well established that it may award damages or compensation on the basis of equity, even in the absence of documentary proof. In line with this jurisprudence of the court, we urge the court to award moral damages to the victims for the pain and suffering they and their families have suffered in the terms as requested in the originating application. Secondly, we also ask the court to award rehabilitation measures. It is important that victims be provided with opportunities for rehabilitation, both to restore as far as possible the situation prior to the violation and to reduce the anger and frustration. Many of the victims, particularly those who have survived mutilations, require long-term medical and psychological rehabilitation. This includes immediate and ongoing access to healthcare services, including reconstructive surgery, treatment for skin care, and mental health support. They also require psychological counseling for victims and their families to address the trauma caused by the violence and the social stigma they continue to face. Lastly, the provision of prosthetics and other assistive devices for those who have lost limbs and other body parts in attacks to restore their dignity and enable them to lead independent lives. We therefore urge the court to award rehabilitation measures. Thirdly, we also urge this court to award restitution and reintegration. As the evidence that was put before the court, many persons with albinism, particularly children, were displaced from their homes and placed in holding centers where they were cut off from their families and communities. We therefore urge this court to order the safe reintegration of displaced persons with albinism, particularly children, into their communities and families with adequate support to ensure their security. We also urge the court to order the provision of secure housing for families of persons with albinism who have had to flee due to threats or attacks, ensuring that they can live without fear or violence. Fourthly, honorable judges, beyond individual compensation and rehabilitation, we also seek remedies that address the structural and systemic factors that allowed these violations to occur. As the Inter-American Court of Human Rights stated in Villagran Morales versus Guatemala, such measures help to recover the memory of the victims, reestablish their reputation, console their next of kin, or transmit a message of official condemnation of the human rights violations in question and commitment to the efforts to ensure that they do not happen again. The following measures are therefore crucial to ensuring non-repetition. Firstly, public apology and recognition. The respondent state should be ordered to issue a public apology to persons with albinism and their families, acknowledging the violations committed and the state's failure to adequately protect them. This apology should be published in national newspapers and other media, including in Kiswahili, to reach the widest audience. Secondly, there should be educational and sensitization campaigns. The deep-rooted superstitions and harmful beliefs that drive attacks on persons with albinism must be addressed through a sustained national public education campaign. This should be designed in consultation with civil society organizations and representatives of people with albinism to ensure its effectiveness. Thirdly, there should also be training of law enforcement, judiciary, and healthcare professionals on the rights and needs of persons with albinism. Fourthly, the state should be ordered to ensure that crimes against persons with albinism are adequately and effectively investigated and prosecuted with appropriate punishments for perpetrators. And lastly, there should be commemorative measures. The respondent state should be required to commemorate the victims of these atrocities through memorials and public recognition, reinforcing the state's commitment to never allow such violations to occur. We further request that this court order symbolic reparations to restore the dignity of persons with albinism. This could include the establishment of a fund for the welfare of persons with albinisms dedicated to providing advocacy and other services that directly benefit the persons with albinism. The applicants would like to reiterate that in the event that the court requires further documentation or information to order specific reparations requested in the originating application, the practice of this court shows that it is at liberty to order the declaratory reliefs as part of the decision on the merits and defer other reliefs to a decision on reparation. In conclusion, honorable judges, reparations in this case are not merely about financial compensation. They are about restoring dignity, healing the wounds of a traumatized community, and ensuring that such violations never happen again. The harm suffered by persons with albinism in Tanzania is profound, but this court has the power to deliver a remedy that offers both justice and a hope for the future. We respectfully urge this court to grant the full range of reparations sought in this case, thereby ensuring justice for the victims and setting a precedent for the protection of people with albinism across Africa and upholding the fundamental rights enshrined in the African Charter. Thank you.
La présente audience est suspendue pour 1 heure de
The
temps.
hearing is adjourned for 1 hour. Honorable judges, we will withdraw for 1 hour.